Hey guys, so I've been driving the BMW. It's my daily driver. I don't know, for about 5,000 to 6,000 miles or so, I've started to have like a really bad squeak, and I think it's coming from the right front. I don't think my rotors have ever been replaced or reconditioned or anything like that, so I'm just going to go ahead and do rotors and brakes on my daily driver on the front, and then at a later date I'll shoot a video on how to do the backs. But I do have the M Sport, so it has the unfinished front Brembos, as you can see right there, 4-piston calipers in the front. I already got the car jacked up, which is kind of a process. You need to go underneath, and there is a jacking point in the middle that you need to use. So you may need to actually roll it up on a ramp and then try to get your jack under there. It is kind of difficult, and it's kind of a tight fit underneath there, getting the jack there. So here's the side that I think is the culprit. As you can see, my rotor kind of has some off wear here, and then I can feel it on this side. It's even worse on the other side. It's pretty common, I think, if you don't bed your brakes in correctly, or debris and stuff gets built up in there. It's really not good for it. So I think that's probably what the cause is. But I got some brand new brakes here, or some new rotors here, and so we're gonna get them cleaned up, and then while I'm at it, I'm gonna also replace the pads. Okay, so here's everything that you're gonna need. I have a WD-40, brake cleaner, rotor, obviously, and then you have the Permatech brake lube, which this is my favorite one. I like it. I think it's got a good thing. I use this on the race car and everything too, so I'm pretty comfortable with it. You're gonna need some gloves. It will get pretty dirty, especially with the cleaning. I have some brushes here to clean the rotor. You want to use nylon brushes on this mostly. You don't want to use a lot of metal, because I mean, those brake parts, some of them, especially like the piston cup and everything, they're rubber, so you don't want to scratch those up. You'll need a hammer and a driver tool, or a bit there. You'll need a 6mm hex head. The breaker bar I have just in case. I'm not sure how good the bolts are on the calipers. I also have my impact gun here. That's just for helping to get the wheels off. Obviously, I already have the wheels off. Not rocket science. You just kind of undo the lug nuts. And then I have my handy dandy brake pads. And then this is for the front, the driver's side. And this is for the driver's side. This is the brake pad wear sensor. I've read a lot of different things. I think you can reuse it if you haven't gotten to the point where you need, like, your brake pad sensor goes off. But I'm going to replace it anyway. Again, I'm underneath here. I might as well and get everything done. I got rotors. I didn't get Brembos. I didn't think I needed to spend the money. Plus, I like the black tops there, because I've been told that they should help with the rust. Obviously, they can get rusty and wet and everything depending on where you are, and I live in the Midwest, so ice and snow and all that kind of good stuff. I went with the Wagners. I just went on rockauto.com, honestly. I'll put a link in the description to pretty much everything here. Okay, so to get started, you got to take these pins out. There's one here and one here, and these hold the and these come out pretty easily. Careful not to scratch your caliper like I just did. And they will just kind of come out. So once you push those pins back, you actually have to kind of press down on this spring, and you gotta, it is pretty heavy. and then you should be able to just pull the pin right out. And then for this one, you can actually do it on the bottom as well, and they'll just pull right out. Now, my pads are pretty low, so I actually, to get the spring out, I have to go underneath the front of the car into the engine compartment and undo the master cylinder cap, because you gotta be able to let the pressure out, because you gotta push these pads back up against there so that you got some room to work with. So I'm gonna go show you how to do that. I'm underneath the hood here right now. All right, so you pop the hood. And then what you're going to want to get to is right underneath here. And to do that, you just take, sometimes you can do it by hand. Looks like I'm going to need to grab a 10 millimeter, it's a 10 millimeter socket. So I'm going to go grab that and I'll be right back. All right, so just take your 10 millimeter socket, open it up. And these don't come off, they're just like kind of locking things. And then you should be able to lift this right up and then set this to the side. And then here's your brake master cylinder. Now again, just undo this and then you can leave it on. You don't want to lose this cap obviously, so you can just leave it right on there. I like to leave it a little bit ajar like that. That way if I try to close this, I'll hear it. But that plate will be in the way anyway. So now we're gonna go back down and we're gonna push the brake pad pistons back, or the caliper pistons back. All right, so we're back over here after we just popped the master cylinder off, and now you can start to actually push the pistons back. And to do that, you might need a pry tool. And since I'm not reusing my brake pads, I can actually just use my hands, or you can use, like I was using, a screwdriver just to kind of get it started. And just work them back and forth. This will help you get them out, and then it'll also help you when you're putting the new pads in, giving you a little bit of space to work with, so you don't have to get a brake pad tool. So here's the brake pad. It actually looks in pretty decent shape, but again, you'll see the rotors once I take them off, how bad they look. I'm really unhappy with how they look. Actually, I don't know what caused it or what happened there, but actually I'm gonna put this back in, because you want to make sure the pistons are as close to flush with the caliper as possible, because again, it'll help immensely when you go to put your brake pads back in. So this one, you can kind of see there's a little bit of looks like a wear mark. Probably just got dirty. They are pretty dirty, so that's what I'm gonna chalk it up to, hopefully. And then hopefully when I put everything back together, the squeal will be gone. All right, so now the brake pads are out. So now you can actually use your hands here and finish getting those pads in. Now, the caliper comes off in 2 bolts. There's one here, and then one down in the bottom, right. Where is it? Right here. So those 2 bolts, I believe they're 18 millimeter. If you have the M Performance rotors or Brembos, it's actually an E16 Torx. I thought that it was going to be the same thing because that's what I saw online, but these finished ones actually use the 18 millimeter bolt back there. So I'm gonna adjust the camera and see if I can get you back there. And then this you may need the breaker bar for. I'm not 100% sure how hard these are going to be on there, but just take your time, and yeah, if you need a breaker bar, just don't be afraid to use it. All right, so once again, we want to take this bolt and this bolt off. It's nice. It's a good idea to have either an old hanger, or there are like caliper hanger things that you can buy. I'm just using some old clothes hangers. That way you can hang the caliper, because you don't want to hang the caliper from this this line here. And that was on there pretty good, so you'll have to get some leverage, or if you have a breaker bar or a socket longer than mine, it might help. Alright, so yeah, once again, definitely on there pretty tight. But again, if you turn the wheel and get enough space, you should have enough leverage just with a longer socket wrench. Obviously, if you have a longer one, you have something you can put on there to make it a little longer to get the extra torque you need. That would help. And I'm kind of using my knee here to help stabilize, because you do not, again, you do not want your caliper hanging from the rubber brake line. I'm gonna get loose, get my other hand in there, and then do the rest by hand. And once again, like I said, I just got some old hanger here, and I'm going to use that to hang this caliper. You can use, I'm going to use the spring up at the top. You can really use whatever you can get this on that's nice and sturdy. The caliper's not super heavy, but it is heavy. So make sure whatever you have is sturdy enough to hold that up. Okay, so now that we got the caliper hanging up there, again, I got it hanging on the spring. That's a good place for it. We're gonna have to clean that out pretty good. It's pretty dirty, but actually not as bad as I thought it was gonna be. But yeah, so now we gotta get this rotor off, and to do that, you gotta undo that thing right there, and that's what you need your 6mm Allen end wrench. You can use an Allen key, but honestly, just using one of the ratchet ones is you'll use it for several other things. So it's definitely worth the investment. And then I need to save this bolt because I'm going to reuse it. But some of the rotors that you can buy, they actually come with a new one, which would have been kind of nice, but the ones that I bought did not. So, all right, so now that it's unscrewed, it does just pop off. And there's your old rotor. Now, here is what I was talking about, how the wear pattern is so bad. I'm not sure exactly what was happening on this inside pad. It probably just got dirty here at the top, but I was getting a lot of squeaking, and I have a feeling that that's probably, this uneven wear pattern is definitely what it's from, if I had to guess. Yeah, so that's why I'm putting new rotors on, and yeah, so I'm excited. Awesome. So I'm going to clean all these surfaces up, Obviously you can see it's kind of rusty there and everything. So I'm going to clean that up with a nice wire brush, clean the caliper off, and then I can start putting everything back together. I really could spend all day doing this, but honestly it's not worth it. It's just gonna obviously get really dirty again. So I mean, I cleaned it up, knocked a lot of the loose dirt and junk that was on it. So now I'm gonna clean the caliper, which is gonna take a little while because I'm basically just gonna use these nylon brushes and then a little bit of soap and water. You don't want to use brake cleaner because of the rubber boots and things like that on the caliper stuff. So use nylon brushes, don't use metal either. And so we'll clean that up and then we'll start putting everything back together. Alright, so now we're going to start putting the rotor, the new rotor on. One of the things that I didn't mention yet, but you do need to keep aware of, is when you get new rotors, anytime you get new rotors, you gotta clean them off. You gotta get some brake clean and you gotta get a rag and you just gotta wipe them down. So basically you just wipe down the surface. They ship them with like this this coating so that they don't rust, and you want to definitely make sure you get that off. Now when you're lining this back up, you want to kind of line it up with the hole as best you can. Hold it up there and then grab your bolt and then I'm going to wipe it down once more. Just make sure I got all the stuff off, and then if my hand's got anything on it, I can clean it off here. Alright, so now the rotor's new. The new rotor is on. And now the next step is just to put the caliper back up. Alright, so I got the rotor cleaned up and back on. You really only have to snug this. There's not a torque spec for it, but you just kind of snug it up. And then I got these two bolts in, the top one here, and then the bottom one down there. And these get torqued to 81 foot-pounds. So I'm going to torque those down right now, and then we'll keep moving. Alright, now that the calipers are back on, now we can start working on putting the brake pads back on. Now, I just kind of went through and I cleaned up all the stuff. They're not perfect. I probably should have bought new ones. But again, they'll do what they need to do. And I'm not going to track this or anything like that. It's just a daily driver. So I'll just lube them up good and make sure that they're on right. Okay, so you just apply a nice thin layer of grease or lubricant on the back of these, and then you want to make sure you get these sides too, because they contact the caliper on these sides. And then if you did the
pushing of the piston back correctly, you should just be able to slide it right in. But might be a little bit tight, but you also can just go in there and try to push the piston down a little bit more than you already did, and then it should slide in pretty easy. And then you got to put the spring back in, and then you can start putting the pins. Oh shit, actually I forgot to... Then to get the pins back in, you can just kind of tap them in, making sure that they're all lined up as you continue to tap them in. And then it helps to get a screwdriver so you know that they're flat. They should be back to where you got them when you had to push them out. So now the brake pads are in, and then I got to do the other side, and I'll show you how to do the brake pad wear sensor, because again it's only on one side. And then the brake pedal, when you get in, you want to pump the brakes a couple times, that way the pistons go back out and it'll clamp on the rotor. But that's one side done. So here's where the brake wear sensor goes in. You might need some pliers to help get this off, or you can just unclip it all the way through, which I think is what I'm going to do. It basically just clips on here, and then back up on the box. probably hasn't. So here you can see again.
Yeah, I can see it back there.
You can see how bad this one is. It's actually got grooves in it.
Yep.
And that could cause some noise and everything too. So I'm glad I'm doing this. Alright, so now it's time to put the brake pad sensor in. And it's basically just the reverse of how you took it out. So I'm going to first connect it to the box and then connect it to the thing, and then we can put our brake pads in and then we're done. So now the sensor's in. Again, you just connect to the box, close the box, and then it goes in here, here, and here, and then this will clip in, and this little the higher piece here will go towards the rotor. But I'll show you that once I put it on the brake pad. Now that we lubed up this brake pad, you can put the sensor in, and it should just go right in here and clip in. And I gotta get a better grip on it. Alright, so now you can now that I got the brake pad in, I think it's easier to get it in here. Now now that it's in here, or to get the pad sensor in here. And it should just kind of clip on there, and you may want to use just and it'll just snap right in there. Just make sure it's on there. Yep. And then you're good to go, and then you can start putting the rest of the stuff back together. And now you're done. You might want to clean this up and just again make sure all the grease that is there doesn't get onto the pad surfaces. But yeah, overall that's how you do it. So now that you're done pushing the caliper pistons back in, now you can retighten your master cylinder. Make sure that that's really tight, or hand tight, snug, and then you can put this plate back on. So after you've done the brakes, you want to get in and you want to depress the pedal a couple times. Now I already did it and thought the camera was rolling, but it wasn't. But it will go all the way to the floor, and then once you start pressing it a couple times, it'll feel a lot firmer. And that's just the fluid getting back into the pistons that you pushed out when you pushed the caliper pistons back. So now we're going to go out and we're going to do the brake pad break-in, or the bedding, and so here we go. So I just got done bedding in the fronts. I think they did pretty well. You could see kind of the difference in the color here, and I definitely was starting to smell them, that's for sure. I might do it another cycle in a little while, but it has been. So one of the things that I'll put on the video is, so I didn't do the back brakes or the rear rotors and stuff. And I'm still getting a quite bad squeal on my right, and I know it's from the right side. I just replaced everything, obviously, so I cannot imagine that it's the front. I hope it's not the front, but I'm gonna have to do some more investigating to double check that theory and make sure that it isn't the front. Otherwise, I probably have to go back and redo some of the brake stuff. But that's the process. Yeah, tune in next time. Thanks. If you like this, subscribe, hit the like button in the bottom left, and I'll see you guys next time for when oh man, I gotta clean up.